Lesson 16, Future Tense, Conjugations 1 and 2, and Sum, Future Tense. Welcome back to Lenny's Latin class. Today we're on page 49, and our main focus today is the future tense. So let's jump right into section 147. When we studied the imperfect tense, we added in two letters, the letters B and A, to make forms like laudabamus or laudabam. For the future tense, we're going to be adding in a similar set of letters, which I call an infix, except these letters are B and I. So instead of BA or ba, we're going to add BI or B. But it won't always be BI. There will be some variation. As you can see here in section 147, starting on the fourth line, it says, in the first person singular, I of the tense sign, that's the BI, it disappears before the ending O. In the third person singular, it becomes a U. And in the second person singular passive, it becomes an E. Okay, so we're going to have a little bit of variation. It's basically a BI being added in with a few times when it will vary. Okay, so let's move on to section 148, and let's see how we're going to form the different forms of the future tense by adding in a B and an I. Here on the left, we have our regular, normal first conjugation sample verb, which is laudo. And we're going to make forms like laudabo, laudabis, laudabit, laudabimus, laudabitus, and laudabunt. So these forms say, I will praise, you will praise, he, she, or it will praise, we will praise, y'all will praise, and they will praise. Okay? Let's look at the first person plural, laudabimus. If we take away the B and the I, it's just laudamus, the regular, normal present tense, first person plural form, we praise. But when we add in the BI, we get laudabimus, and that changes it to we will praise. Look at the second person singular. We have laudabis. If we take away the B and the I, we have laudas. That's our normal present tense form. But with the B and the I there, we get laudabis, you will praise. Okay, so basically we're taking present tense forms, and we're just inserting the BI, what they call in the book here, the tense sign. Sometimes in grammar books, I see it called an infix. And as I mentioned before, we do have some variation here. For example, the first person singular, I will praise. As you can see, we don't have laudabio. We don't have BI here. The letter I goes away, and you just get laudabo. Okay, so that's a place where there's a bit of variation. And in the third person plural, they will praise, the I is also missing. And we get the letter U there. So most of the time, it's BI being added in, except for some exceptions. In the passive, we see forms like laudabor, laudaberis, laudabitur, laudabimur, laudabimini, laudabuntur. Okay, I will be praised, you will be praised, he, she, or it will be praised, and so on and so forth. And you can see here in the second person singular, you will be praised. Instead of a BI, we get a BE. Instead of laudabiris, we get laudaberis. And moving down to section 149, you'll see the same exact stuff happens with the second conjugation. Okay, looking at the active forms of moneo. Moneo is our usual second conjugation sample verb. So looking at the first person plural form, monebimus, that means we will warn or we will advise. If we took away the B and the I, we'd have monemus. That's our normal present tense form. But with the B and the I, we get monebimus, we will warn, or we will advise. Okay, except for the first person singular, the I goes away. Third person plural, we get the letter U. Passive, second person singular, we get the letter E there instead of an I. So that's pretty much what happens here with the future tense. We're just adding be and I before the personal ending, except for a couple of exceptions. Moving on now to the next page, turning to page 50. Let's examine section 150, the future tense of sum. Okay, we get I will be, you will be, he, she, or it will be, we will be, you will be, or as we call it, y'all will be, and they will be. Okay, so we get ero, eris, erit, erimus, eritus, and erunt. Nothing too complicated here. It's best to just memorize these. And as you make up sentences with them and practice them orally, they'll be easy to memorize. If you want to, you can chant these forms. Of course, you'll be putting the emphasis on the wrong syllable, but just for chanting and memorization, you can do it. You can say ero, eris, erit, erimus, eritus, erunt. But keep in mind that in Latin, you're never supposed to put the accent on the final syllable. That's sort of a no-no. So instead of ero, you'll pronounce it arrow or something like that. Okay, let's move on now to our vocabulary. That's section 151. Our first word here is a first declension noun, memoria, memoriae, which means memory. A related English word would be memorial. Next is dux, ducus. That's a masculine noun of the third declension, which means leader. And we discussed it in the last lesson, talking about the formation of the genitive singular. A related English word would be duct tape. A duct is a pipe or something that leads water or air along, right? Also, words like introduction, reduction. Moving on, we have rex regis, which means king. That's a third declension noun. A related English word would be regal. Next, we have equus, equitus, which means horseman. That's a masculine noun of the third declension. A related English word would be equestrian. Next, we have obses, obsidis, which means hostage. That's another third declension noun. The reason we have this word here, as you can see from the footnote, is that when different nation states would make agreements, diplomatic agreements, they would often give each other hostages as a way to show good faith. And we'll see this playing out as we read Caesar's Gallic Wars. Next we have pedis, peditus, which means foot soldier. The root there, P-E-D, that root means foot in Latin. So we have English words like pedal, pedestrian, etc. Next we have salus, salutus, which means safety. A related English word would be salutation. Fortiter is an adverb that means bravely. Atque is a conjunction that means and or and also. The footnote here says that when you use atque, it emphasizes the second word. Next we have sed, which is a conjunction that means but. We have the verb teneo here. That's a second conjugation verb. Teneo, tenere, tenui, tentum, which means to hold. A related English word would be untenable. And finally, we have a little idiom here, memoria teneo, to hold in memory or to remember. Notice that memoria here is ablative singular, so it's like to hold by memory or to hold by means of memory, something like that. Okay, let's move on now to section 152, and let's examine our translation exercises for this lesson. Go ahead and turn the recording off and try them on your own. And when you're finished, turn the recording back on and we'll do them together. Okay, hopefully by now you've finished your translation exercises. Let's take a look at them together, starting with number 1. Number 1 is nuntiabunt. Nuntiabunt is a form of the verb nuntio, which means to announce something or report something. And this is future tense, third person plural. Notice the letter U there. Instead of bi, we get bu. So nuntiabunt says something like they will report or they will announce. Number 2, eubebis. Eubebis is a form of the verb eubeo, which means to command or order someone to do something. And this is second person singular, future tense. Notice that in these exercises here, we're working on practicing the future tense. So eubebis says you, singular, will command. In number 3, we have a couple of second person plural verbs to practice with. Wokabitis and wokabimini. They're both based on the verb woko, which means call. The first one is active, the second one is passive. And they're both future tense. So wokabitis says y'all will call, and wokabimini says y'all will be called. Number 4 is next, widebimus, widebimur. Okay, these are both forms of the verb wideo, which means to see, and they're both future tense. The first one is first person plural active, and the second one is first person plural passive. So widebimus says we will see, and widebimur says we will be seen. In number 5, we have a complete sentence, kastra moebuntur. Okay, the verb here, moebuntur, is a form of moeo, which means to move, and it's future tense, third person plural, passive. So we might say, they will be moved. The subject here is kastra, which means camp. Remember that kastra is the kind of word that's written down in a plural way, but when we translate it, we think of it as a singular. But since it's grammatically plural, it needs a plural verb. So kastra and moebuntur together will say, the camp will be moved. Number 6 is next. Equites proeliis cum galliis fortiter pugnabunt. Okay, the verb here is pugnabunt. That's a form of the verb pugno, which means fight. And it's future tense, third person plural. So pugnabunt says they will fight. And the subject here is equites. That's one of our new nouns for this lesson. The noun equitus, which means horseman. Sometimes you see it translated as knight, K-N-I-G-H-T. We could also translate it as cavalryman. So anyway, the equites and pugnabunt together say the horseman or cavalryman will fight. Fortiter means bravely. That's an adverb. Cum gallis means with the Gauls. And proeliis means in battles. That's ablative plural. I suppose that proeliis here is an ablative of specification. Anyway, the sentence will read like this. The horsemen will fight bravely with the Gauls in battles. Number 7 is next. Obsides ariovisto regi Germanorum dabuntur. Okay, the subject here is obsides, which means hostages. That's one of our new third declension nouns for this lesson. And dabuntur says, they will be given. Okay, it's a form of the verb do, which means give, and it's future tense, third person plural, passive. Okay, so obsides dabuntur, the hostages will be given. And then we have a dative singular here, ariovisto. Ariovisto is a classic case of a dative indirect object. That says to ariovistus. It's the recipient or beneficiary. And we have the word regi standing in apposition with the word ariovisto. Okay, regi is the word rex, one of our new third declension nouns for this lesson, and it's in the dative case. Why is it dative? Because it's standing in apposition with ariovistus. Germanorum means of the Germans. So number 7 says something like this. The hostages will be given to Ariovistus, king of the Germans. Number 8 is next. Caesar equos peditibus dabit. Okay, the subject is Caesar. The verb is dabit. That's a form of the verb do. And it's future tense, third person singular. So it says, Caesar will give. Equos is accusative plural. That's the direct object. So Caesar will give horses. And then we have peditibus in the dative plural. Peditibus is a classic example of an indirect object. They're the ones benefiting or receiving. They are the foot soldiers. Okay, so number 8 says, Caesar will give horses to the foot soldiers. Number 9 is next. A Romanis, virtus Helvetiorum, memoria tenebitur. Okay, the subject here is virtus. That means valor or manliness. And it's being possessed by Helvetiorum. So the valor of the Helvetii, tenebitur, that's the verb. Tenebitur is a form of the verb teneo, which means to hold. And in this particular case, it's future tense, third person singular passive. Okay, so tenebitur says, he, she, or it will be held. Okay, so what we have so far is says, the valor of the Helvetii will be held. We have the word memoria here, which is ablative singular. It means by memory. And together with the verb tenebitur, it forms an idiom, to hold in memory. It means to remember. So the valor of the Helvetii will be remembered, literally will be held in memory. And then we have a classic case of an ablative of agent. That's the preposition a or ab, showing who did something in a passive verb construction. Okay, so we have a passive verb here, tenebitur, and we'll translate it into English with the word by. We'll say by the Romans. That's a Romanis. Okay, very often when you have a passive verb, you get an ablative of agent to show who is doing the action. And that's what a Romanis is. So number 9 says this, the valor of the Helvetii will be remembered by the Romans. Number 10 is next. Cassius bello cum Helvetiis dux Romanorum erit. Okay, the subject here is Cassius. That's a person's name. Erit is the verb that says he will be. It's future tense. And then the word dux here means leader, and that is a predicate. Okay, it's a predicate nominative. So Cassius, erit, and dux together will say Cassius will be the leader. Okay, dux is being possessed by Romanorum. So dux Romanorum says leader of the Romans. Cum Helvetiis is a prepositional phrase that says with the Helvetii. And bello is ablative singular. That's the word bellum, which means war. Here it's ablative singular because it's, I suppose, ablative of specification. So number 10 says, Cassius will be leader of the Romans in the war with the Helvetii. Okay, we translate bello as in the war. Or maybe you could say with respect to the war with the Helvetii. Either way, the Latin is communicating the same thing. Number 11 is next. Exploratores erunt magno in periculo. Okay, exploratores means scouts, and the verb here is erunt. That's future tense, third person plural, of the verb of being. So exploratores erunt says the scouts will be, and then we have in periculo. That means in danger. So what we have so far says the scouts will be in danger, but we also have the adjective magno here, modifying periculo. So really it's in great danger. Now you might ask the question, why not just say in magno periculo or in periculo magno? Well, the sentence could be worded that way with that kind of word order, but it's more stylistically like Caesar to put the adjective first, especially with an adjective of size or quantity like this. This is what you might call a preposition sandwich. Okay, you have the preposition in the middle between the adjective and the noun. So magno is the adjective, periculo is the noun, and the preposition is wedged in between. It's a preposition sandwich. And we see this with the common phrase magna cum laude. When someone is graduating from college, you might see magna cum laude or even summa cum laude. Same thing, it's a preposition sandwich. They put the adjective first, then the preposition in, and then the noun, laude, which means praise. Okay, moving along now to number 12. Populus Romanus ariovistum regem atque amicum appellabit. Okay, the subject here is Populus Romanus. That means the Roman people. Appellabit is the verb. That's from the verb appello, which means to call someone something or name someone something. And it's third person singular future tense. So what we have so far says the Roman people will name, or the Roman people will call. You could even say designate. The Roman people will designate. And who will they designate? Ariovistus. And so we have the word ariovistum here in the accusative case. So the Roman people will call or will name ariovistus. And now we're going to have two more accusative nouns which are referring back to ariovistus. Regem means king. That's one of our new nouns for this lesson. It's the third declension word rex. And amicum is just the noun amicus, the second declension noun, which means friend. So what we have here basically is regem and amicum are standing in apposition with ariovistum. Okay, technically, grammatically, the word ariovistum is the direct object of the sentence. Appellabit is an active verb. So what we have here is the Roman people will call ariovistus king and friend. Okay, so regem and amicum are accusative because they're standing in apposition with the accusative singular direct object ariovistum. Number 13 is next. Consilia belli ad ducibus non enuntiabuntur. Okay, the subject here is the word consilia. That's the second declension noun concilium, which is neuter, and this is the nominative plural form of it. Okay, remember that any neuter noun will have a nominative plural that ends with the letter A. So one concilium, two concilia. Okay, and the verb here is enuntiabuntur. That's a form of the verb enuntio, which means to announce something out or broadcast or tell everybody. It's really the verb nuntio, which means to announce or report, with the preposition a or x on the front. So it means literally to announce something out or announce it forth. Okay, so enuntiabuntur is future tense, third person plural passive. So concilia and enuntiabuntur together will say the plans will be announced forth, or the plans will be reported. Okay, belli is genitive singular. That's possessing concilia. So concilia belli says the plans of war. Non is here negating the verb. And ad ducibus is a classic case of an ablative of agent. Oftentimes, when you have a passive verb, you'll have the preposition a or ab along with an ablative noun telling us who the action is being done by. And we'll translate that into English with the word by, by. So ad ducibus says by the leaders. Okay, ducibus is the ablative plural form of the word dux. So number 13 says, the plans of war will not be reported by the leaders. Okay, that brings us to the end of another installment of Lenny's Latin class. Remember to make up lots of sentences orally and practice speaking the language. You have lots of new words to use in this lesson, like the word rex and dux. You can say, rex pugnat fortiter, the king is fighting bravely. You can say, pedites pugnant fortiter, the foot soldiers are fighting bravely. You can say, dux peditum pugnat fortiter, the leader of the foot soldiers is fighting bravely. You can say, memoria teneo regem, I remember the king. Okay, all kinds of different sentences that you can make up on your own. Also use the future tense forms of sum, which you learned at the top of page 50. So it's fine that you're learning all these grammar rules. Okay, the grammar rules are here just to show you how the language works. Once you understand how it works, at that point you just need to practice working with the language over and over by doing oral exercises. Okay, so learn all the grammar rules, learn how everything works grammatically, but then practice actually speaking the language. And that's where you'll really get your mastery from. Okay, thanks for sticking with me, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time in Lesson 17.